this video I'm going to talk about the use of hand controls. Now on my vehicle it's fitted to the right hand side, but they can be mounted on the left. Now the use of hand controls can be quite daunting for some people simply because they're using one hand to accelerate and brake and one hand to control the steering wheel. And as we all know, we get told as a learner, you should have both hands on the steering wheel. It doesn't make it less safe that you're using one hand, okay? It takes practice, and it's the same with anything. Now, with hand controls, typically most people will take around 4 to 6 hours to kind of master the skill of hand controls. And I say master loosely, but enough to pass an assessment if you're already a qualified driver. Obviously, if you're new to driving, then it will take exactly the same amount of time as a normal learner. It's not something to sort of be worried about. So much so when I'm driving and I've gone to a client that's used the hand controls, typically I'll actually use the hand controls to get to my next client because it's a little bit easier. At the end of the day, I'm only using 2 arms instead of both my arms and both my legs. Now, the hand controls that I have fitted to my vehicle are a company called Viegel. They make a combination of a mechanical brake, and pretty much all of them will be mechanical brakes unless you have reduced strength. But this has a electronic accelerator, and you can see it has this kind of twisting action. This is also the V2, so you have the indicator on the back and a horn on the top, and this horn button can be used for different things depending on what you prefer. So you can speak to your fitter, installer, engineer and get them to play around with this. The advantage with this Viegel is that it's very ergonomic in the hand. It's shaped really nicely, so it feels quite natural to use, and because it's electronic accelerator, it's very easy to pull. The other advantage to the Viegel electronic system is that it will be the same in every single vehicle. It's not mechanically attached to the accelerator like a mechanical one. If you do prefer a mechanical pull push hand control, personally I like the Jeff Gosling one. It's very direct, there's no play, it's quite a compact unit, it's quite small grip, so it does depend on your preference when it comes to grip types as well. And the indicator toggle is normally on the top. You do get remote systems as well that can be installed on a lot of hand controls, mainly by a company called Lodsons, which does the indicator, the horn and the lights as well. They are quite costly, so it's worth exploring and finding out the costs, as it's a bit of a chunk. Okay, now whenever it comes to hand controls, whether you're using a mechanical or electric, it's push to brake and pull to accelerate, down to slow, up to go, okay, or down to slow down, pull up to speed up, whatever works for you. The other way that I advise people to think about it is if I'm telling you to stop, I'm pushing my hand forward. And this is quite counterintuitive. You will get confused when you're using hand controls on the first couple lessons. Most people do. It's really not uncommon. So if you do panic and you start doing random things, the instructor will take control of the car with the dual brake. And that's why it's very important that you use a dual controlled vehicle. Don't just get hand controls fitted to your vehicle and think that you're going to master them very easily. Some people do, but it's extremely rare, okay? And you do not want to be losing control of the car, panicking on public roads with no get out of jail card. It's incredibly dangerous. You could kill or injure someone. So please take it serious. Have some lessons with an instructor. You can find those on disabilitydriveringinstructors.com, and I'll put a link in the description underneath. So it's a nice light grip. You don't have to be gripping it tight. I tend to actually use what I call a sliding grip, as you can see there. So I'm pushing, I'm selecting drive, I do my usual checks before I then pull away. Don't grip, okay? The lighter you grip, the more control you'll have. And you can see I'm not using my fingers at all. I just pull a little bit to get the car to move. And I tend to use my middle finger on this particular type of indicator. If you're using a thumb type, obviously you're going to use your thumb traditionally, but at the end of the day it is completely down to you what you prefer. No one is dictating your method, okay? If you prefer to grip it really tight, do so. But we know when we're teaching people on the track that the tighter the grip, the less control you have. So just having 2-3 fingers, even one if you prefer, just so you've got a very light balance on this. And you can see I'm not using the palm of my hand, although you can if you wish. Okay, I'm just going to change the setting. I'm going to use a left indicator, so you can see I've just knocked it there, and then I'm going to keep my left turn on. As you can see with the steering ball, I've positioned it lower than the 3 o'clock position, and that's simply because this big bulbous bit on the steering wheel makes it quite hard to put a steering clamp on. And you can see again, no panic, just nice light pressure, allow them to get out of the way. Traditionally it's mounted on the top, but it's completely up to you. If you prefer to be a unicorn and have it up there, have it up there, it doesn't make a difference. When you're using hand controls again for the first time, use your brakes extra early, because you've got to gently find out where the pressure is. Again, it's very common when somebody's using hand controls for the first time that you will hammer the brake, put your instructor through the windscreen or on the dashboard. Don't worry about it, they are completely used to it, so it's nothing to stress about. You will get used to it with practice. Now, hand controls is traditionally used for people that have lower limb disabilities with both limbs. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Sometimes with people that have got a lower right limb disability and they don't like the idea of a left foot accelerator because they might get confused with the pedals, then hand controls may be prescribed. That tends to happen for people that are qualified drivers and have been for many years and are now having to face a disability with their right leg. Hand controls is normally the next thing to use, just to avoid potential pedal confusion, which again can be incredibly dangerous. So again, just pushing the brake nice and gently, and then a little pull just to get it going. Now, with a lot of cars, you may have to cancel the indicator manually. As you can see, when I've done the turn, the indicator doesn't cancel. I have to do it manually. Some cars it will do it automatically, and also some hand control manufacturers it will be able to auto cancel as well. I know Viegel, they do on their new variants. It was only because I've got the old module that they wasn't able to do the cancellation system on this car. If I had it fitted from the beginning, then it can be. I'm just going to do one more turn and then park. So again, just pushing the brake nice and gently into my turn, and then I'm going to pull over just here using that little bit of brake. So I hope that video has helped, and if you do have any further questions, comment below. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Few things just to go over. Make sure the hand controls are the best fit for you and that they're positioned correctly as well. Some hand control manufacturers will specifically state the steering wheel has to be in a certain place, so please be aware of that. But make sure it feels good in your hand. Second thing is make sure that it is the correct adaptation for you. There are people with specific medical requirements that mean that they basically can't pull as effectively, or the hand position isn't going to be suitable. Therefore, a hand control is not going to be your best option. Something like an over-ring, under-ring, ghost ring, trigger accelerator, left foot accelerator sometimes will be a better option. Okay, so if you are unsure, speak to your driving mobility centre, be assessed, and they will give you the best advice to find out which adaptation is going to be best for you. I've had clients in the past go away, spend a load of money on their vehicle to be fitted with hand controls. They came to me, and then we found out they couldn't even turn the steering wheel with one hand. It turns out as well that that particular vehicle could not be fitted with lightened power steering. So they spent, I think it was about £1,200 on getting their car adapted, and they couldn't even use it. So speak to your driving mobility centre, have an assessment. And also, I cannot stress this enough, if you are sending off the D497 form, okay, which is basically where you suggest which adaptations you require to the DVLA, and you do not know what those codes are, and you have not really been told to use those specific codes, I would strongly advise you do not do that. Speak to your driving mobility centre. After the assessment, they will specifically state which codes needs to be fitted to your license, and that should be done after you've had your on-road assessment and passed. If you're doing your driving test, the code 114 is going to be more appropriate. That means any adaptations if required, and then once you've passed your driving test, the examiner will code your license. But I've had people in the past come for an assessment or come for driving lessons, and because they've incorrectly coded their own license, I couldn't put them on the road because the combination of adaptations just doesn't work. It's impossible to have that particular combination, or it's not specific for the vehicles that we have, and therefore the road assessment could not be conducted. So if unsure, again, leave it, speak to the driving assessment centre and get clarification. One more thing as well is with pedal guards. If you do have involuntary movements in your lower limbs, you will require a pedal guard. This is for safety, to stop you from accidentally hitting the pedals. It can be very easily removed by either wing nuts or like a little trigger grip thing, and somebody else could then drive your vehicle with no problems whatsoever. They're not massively expensive. It will be coded on your license, but again, this is a safety thing. It will be required. So if you do have involuntary movements, state this from the beginning, because that will need to be fitted to your car. The problem that you do have with pedal guards is it does take up a lot of the space, so it blocks the pedals from the front, and therefore you might have to have a longer vehicle if you are a taller stature, because otherwise you're going to struggle to fit in the vehicle. So again, something to take into consideration. I hope that helps, and again, comment, like, share, and I will put more videos up like this to help you with adaptations.